We are officially live a little bit early because we are bringing to you the next guest, the last guest, but not least, Kyle Kors. And for those of you who are just joining, brand new to the live stream today, this is hour 12, technically hour 13 of the Rate for Money and Power book launch live stream. We've been going live since 7 a.m. this morning talking to amazing guests, but I am so excited to bring our next guest into this conversation. His name is Kyle Kors. He is a writer, creative technologist, and entrepreneur who came up in Hollywood working with major showrunners before co-founding the Orphanage Collective, a creative collective that represented and supported emerging talent. Since then, he's co-founded multiple companies, including Kingdom of Ink, a writing agency, and Kingdom of Pavement, a podcast production company, where he wrote and created a cult hit scripted audio drama inspired by a Lovecraftian horror story called The Horror at Martin's Beach. And most recently co-founded Make Writing a Job with Me, which is now approaching over 30,000 subscribers and ranks in the top 25 of Substack's business leaderboards. He is also the creator of Omlist, a swipe-based movie recommendation app, and is currently building several new projects at the intersection of storytelling, technology, and culture. Kyle is a seven-figure entrepreneur and a damn fine writer. Welcome to the live stream, Kyle.
Thanks, Amy Sudo. I feel like I've been here this whole day. If there's anybody that's here of the 16 that are here that have been in every single video, point yourselves out. Or how many of the interviews did you guys join today? I'd be super fascinated to.
Katrina's definitely been a lot in them. So hello again,
She's done
Katrina.
it. Katrina.
I know Katrina just won the book of Way in our last launch. It's been lovely to see everybody in the chats. So I'm gonna start with the question I've been asking all of our guests, Kyle. And what does creative power mean to you right now at this stage in your career where you've worked across Hollywood, startups, and independent media?
I think for me, based off of human design, if anybody believes in that, I'm technically a projector. And whereas Amy is a manifest generator. So our complements are kind of if Amy's just generating, then in some way I'm trying to help guide it somewhere. And so I think creative freedom for me just feels like anything that you think you can make, you just do. And I think that sometimes we're afraid of what we're capable of doing. And that's why I think a lot of us kind of say, oh, I'll do that when this happens. Or if I get a publisher, we put a lot of it behind it because ultimately it's our fear to actually do it. And I think there's an Alex Hormozy quote, and Amy loves Alex Hormozy quotes, but he's put yourself in a position to become who you are and you can't get out of it. Basically put yourself into the position where you can't get out of becoming who you want to be. And so I think creative freedom to me just feels like I just want any of my ideas to be real. And I think that that's been the biggest part of that. And after going through Hollywood for a long time, I realized I might not ever be able to make a majority of my things here. And a lot of that energy is just going to get sucked up and not go anywhere. And so I think creative freedom is being able to do whatever you want and make whatever you want and have the shortest window of idea to creation possible, or make it as small as possible. And I think that that's what it means to me. I even think when I was 5, I used to talk to my mom about being I have these ideas and I want to make things real. I want puppies that say puppies forever. And I just had all these ideas that I'd bring up, and she's like, well, that's not possible, but that sounds like a good idea. But I'm like, it should be possible in a way that doesn't hurt the dog, obviously. And I think my dream when I was growing up is I always said that ultimately the thing I wished is I could have a helmet that would make my dreams come true. Is I could wear a helmet and I could just dream whatever I wanted and it'd become real. And I think with everything that's happening today and in today's world and what it's growing to, I think people that have creations and felt like they had lifetimes of stories inside of them, I think that we're finally getting support to be able to tell those things through AI or platforms like Substack. I think there's a lot of ways that we're getting more and more supported to be able to create things basically with zero excuses. And I think that that's incredible. So I think creative freedom is having the least amount of excuses and yourself in the way, and also having the ability and the resource and the time to make those things real. So yeah.
I love that. And I think that is it's so hard. But the thing that you brought up of try not to have the excuses get in the way, because as creatives and as writers, we are all living in our heads, and it can be really easy for the creative blocks to come from this idea of like, oh, this is what I should be doing, this is what everyone else is doing. And I think that that's really interesting. But one of the things that is about your background that a lot of people are curious about is you came up in the Hollywood system. You worked for some huge showrunners on some really impressive shows. Looking back on that experience, what do you think the future of Hollywood looks like? Because I know you have a lot of opinions on this.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, like, the people that I worked for, um, a lot of them, like, worked for HBO, and I think that those guys will always probably be able to make a show. Like, it's just like how Broadway has, like, Andrew Lloyd Webber or, like, Stephen Sondheim. Like, I think that they will be of a group that will be able to make shows, like, even if there's, like, we used to have, like, 300 TV shows yearly. Now we have, like, I think somewhere in the hundreds, in the 100 plus. And I think, like, even if it got down to, like, 30 shows produced by Hollywood a year, like, I think that those guys will still have shows. And, like, I think, like, the Vince Gilligan, the Damon Lindelof, like, I think those guys will always have, some type of show. And but I think that, like, the reverse of that I think is starting to develop, and this is something that I saw today actually, is Netflix has been making all of these big deals with, like, really big podcasts. Like, the Bill Simmons basically network is now exclusively licensed to air on Netflix, which is, like, insane. Like, that's an enormous podcasting company. And so I think that we're going to see more stuff like that, is that they're going to start licensing product that has basically been proven in, like, YouTube or whatever, to, like, give a ton of money to somebody as, like, a licensing fee. And then I think after a certain period of time, they might be able to retain the rights and then eventually just put that stuff back on YouTube. So I think what we're going to start to see is, I think that streamers are going to start to become a lot more like YouTube. And that was, like, the famous quote from Ted Sarandos with Netflix, like, 10 years ago, was like, we need to become HBO before HBO becomes us. And now they're buying Warner Brothers, which is HBO. So they got HBO. And I think their new goal is, like, we need to become YouTube. And I think that, but it's always going to be, like, a certain level of curation on some level. I'm sure they're going to have some type of, like, AI filtering thing where they create, like, themes or ideas or products, or, like, or not products, but, like, themes or channels that they think would be, like, a doctor romance show. And I think that that they'll have people uploading that, and I think the system itself will be, like, reviewing that content, and people will be reviewing it. And if it doesn't meet a certain standard, I think they'll reject it. But I think it'll be a type of, like, ad share, like, ad share, rev share model. And I think that's kind of what the future of Hollywood is going to be, because as somebody that dealt with development executives and worked for development executives and movie executives, like at Universal Pictures or USA or Warner Brothers, like any of those places, I just saw how, like, in all seriousness, like, there doesn't really need to be executives. Like, there doesn't. Like, that's why YouTube exists, and, like, why it does so well is because it kind of just says, we're not going to decide what is important. We're just going to let the audience decide what is important, and then we're just going to give them ad share. And so I think that is, I keep saying ad share, but, like, ad revenue. And I think that's kind of the future of what Hollywood is I think it's becoming that, like, the curators, like those tastemakers, I don't think exist anymore. It's more like these algorithms are now, like, the tastemakers, and they've automated that. And that's why YouTube, I think, is the best, like, media business on the planet, and why it's growing, and it's everywhere. Like, there's, like, it's in the most countries, it's in more countries than Netflix, and it has, like, the access and the distribution that's just, like, unmatched. And so, and the second that somebody wants to upload something, they can, and then basically everything else. Thanks, Angel. And So yeah, I think that's, like, kind of the future of Hollywood. I think there will be this old guard of people that are kind of, anointed and living in this, like, in Mount Olympus. But I do think that the main majority of, like, what we're going to start to see is, I think we're going to start to see a lot of really creative people being able to independently finance stuff, or be able to create entire, like, animated Mickey Mouse shorts on their own. And I think they're going to create that through something like ChatGPT with Sora. And then that's, like, what the Disney Sora OpenAI deal was. If anybody looked at it, is basically they have the rights to show that content on Disney Plus. And so I think we'll have a Mickey Mouse channel that basically is an un just like an it'll be definitely filtered, but just like a constant flow of Mickey Mouse content that people are liking, that is like meeting some level of standard that they care about. And I think that that's kind of the future, is going to be them kind of partnering with these AI companies to basically license, their likeness, their characters, so that people can engage with them, go on a romantic date with Darth Vader. There can be like this stuff that people deeply want to do because, we're deeply connected to the things that feel like the iconography of our culture. And I think people want to tell stories with them. And so I think Hollywood, I think if anybody wanted to ever tell a Donald Duck story that he is basically trying to get Huey, Dewey, and Louie back from mobsters, I think that they'll be able to make their version of Taken with Donald Duck, and I think that the world's going to think that's really funny. And so I think that's the future of Hollywood. I think like the smaller and smaller things for like the really, really big high budget stuff is going to just like sequester around the group that currently does it. Like there's only like 20 screenwriters that basically are kind of working at any moment with the major studios, and they're doing the rewrites for all of them. And they're of this like anointed class of people that get to do those jobs. And it might like go down to 15 and then to 10 at some point, but I think it'll be pretty much those guys forever.
Yeah, and for anyone who hasn't checked out Kyle's Substack Founder Core, I know you write a little bit about the future of media there, and I think that there's some good articles there for people who are interested in deeper reading, because you are pointing out trends that, I mean, we're doing this when we were working in Hollywood together, is like you were pointing out trends even then that started to unfold. And I think that even just like the deal you were talking about of OpenAI and Disney being able to, OpenAI using Disney content to train
Hmm.
their Sora models, it's like, whoa, we're here on the hyper creator economy world. Like we've all been in the creator economy world, but now
Right.
what happens when the creators get to use the IP of these huge companies? And
Hmm.
you and I were in an industry where it's like, writers would pitch executives their take on the next Donald Duck movie or whatever Avengers film. And now what we're seeing is like that pitching process gone. It's
Hmm.
going to be what you said, algorithmic, which is interesting and also kind of terrifying for especially people who have been in the old version. But I think for you and I and the people that we know who are loving the creator economy because they're excited to create stuff, I think it's a really exciting time. And kind of building off of that, you spent years working at the intersection of art and technology. Where do you think technology genuinely helps creativity, and where does it get in the way?
Mm, I think that I think technology should always be used as like a tool to allow you to create your thing. Like I remember when Toy Story was coming out, and and I've like read more about it as I got older because I was like, I don't know, 6 or 7 when Toy Story came out. So um but like a lot of people were saying that it was going to be the end of like animation and actors. They're just like, oh, this is the end of everything. And that wasn't true. It like streamlined some other things, but it didn't remove anything. I think a lot of people feel really afraid of like what this stuff is, but I think the people that are the loudest are often the people that are in the inner circle of the walled city, and they're trying to make everybody feel like as scared as possible. But in reality, like, a high likelihood is that we people are not of those 40 people that get access to it, but their resources and their like safety and their antibodies are trying to make us feel that like we shouldn't want access to these things because it's unfair or it's unethical, because they want to keep whatever advantage that they have, that they've cultivated, or the lottery ticket that they won, that allows them to stay in power. That's why I think a lot of these artists, for like obviously music is going to be, it's always the one that's first basically to get affected because it's the smallest file size wise, and it's like the least data. So it's going to be really that they're obviously like trying to get Spotify to claim that they'll never have AI music on Spotify, but that's insane. That's never going to happen. And I think that they'll try to like make it as resistant as possible, into the point where it can't be. And whoever is the next level of the people that are have like really used the tool, and then they're already out there creating live performances with this music and trying to figure out the thing that isn't that is the finite resource that people really highly value, like a live experience. Um, I think that that is going to be the case there. And so, yeah, I think honestly, for I think 99.9999% of people, I think that this is a good thing. I think it's a plus. And I think it's going to allow us to tell our stories. And I think it's going to allow us to have like a seat at the table and truly be able to like, if there's any like merit of attention and remove any of our excuses, I think like this is kind of it. And I think that that's like really exciting because if you care, if you really love like what you do and not just the title of what you do, I think that the future is yours, basically.
I love that. And Katrina in the chat, when you were talking about that Spotify not allowing people trying to get them to not allow AI music, said that's definitely insane to imagine that Spotify would never be, never allow AI music. And I think that, like, yeah, I was talking on one of the Substack lives earlier with Michael Simmons about how sometimes some artists can we can hold this concept of having criticisms of tech companies, having thoughts about AI safety, and he's done a lot of research on AI safety. And artist rights is also something that is like a lot of people have had conversations about with AI. And then you can also be curious and explore about the tools, and because they're
Hmm.
here and they're changing our landscape of media. And so I think that like that was a really kind of balanced take I thought today on creativity and AI of like you can have mixed feelings about it, and but it is something that a lot of people need to start exploring for their industries because things are changing fast. And so one thing that kind of pivoting a little bit is that you built everything from media companies to apps to you're a writer. You put out a scripted podcast that is like like a cult hit, and people are still listening to it for this day. And it like came out a few
It's
years
crazy.
ago. The Horror at Martin's Beach, which is like a crazy show. That is incredible if you love kind of like a twist on a Lovecraftian horror story that is also kind of like playing making fun of the tropes of sorority and fraternity culture, and criticizing that a little bit. Kyle has a great show called The Horror at Martin's Beach on podcast channels that you should absolutely check out. But what surprised you the most about becoming an entrepreneur as a writer? Because obviously you came up as a writer in Hollywood, TV writer, focused on the craft and the art of it, and then you learned all these entrepreneurial skills. What was that journey like for you?
I think that I think a lot of people say that I just want to be a creator, but I don't want to be tied to the business. And I think that that's like, I think you're just setting yourself up for trouble there. Like if you don't take accountability for what is happening or the view count or anything else, it's kind of distorting what the metric is of like how you're performing. Like some people just think it'd be amazing to be kind of this artist that doesn't want to do anything, but the world's begging you that you have to do it because you're a creative genius. And like and I think that I don't know. I think that I lost the question, but
No,
uh,
no, no. Actually, let's
yeah,
follow this thread because you and I were having a conversation about this earlier. And this also leans into one of my next questions, which is about Make Writing Your Job. And obviously, Make Writing Your Job has grown like crazy over the last year. We're about to pass $200,000 annual recurring revenue, with most of that built in the last 12 months. Like Substack is a place that we've gotten a lot of organic traffic on. We've like learned as creatives and creative people building communities, like what does it mean to balance art and the data? And you are particularly very data driven. And that doesn't mean that you are not any less creative because you're one of the most creative people I know. What does it mean to be data driven? And for you, what does that look like when you're looking at Substack growth and things like that? Because it has changed the trajectory of a lot of things that we've worked on. What does being data driven mean to you?
I remember the previous question, and I'll go into what does it mean to be a creative and an entrepreneur. Um, I think for me, for the long, and then I'll get into the data driven stuff because I think
And then
they're
and then
connected.
Amy in the comments says, "I'd love to sit in on your dinner conversations." You are. This is what we talk about at dinner.
You just get way more spicy takes from Amy that she wouldn't say
I
out
may be
loud
a
because
little
she's
less
very
spicy
excited.
on
Yeah,
live.
yeah. I like I write down in my phone kind of like my favorite quotes that Amy says, and there's like one of my favorite is like the stock market is just rich people's emotions. And I just
It
like
is.
remember we were like driving around North Carolina in 2020. No, not Nashville. We were driving around Nashville on our road trip, And she just said that, and I just was like, "Whoa," it's like new curve in brain, and, yeah, there's so many good ones, but yeah, I think for me as a creative, I think the thing that I really love is I love kind of connecting dots and, like, pieces and trying to figure out how to connect these 2 pieces together that, like, make this thing grow. It makes me think of, like, the person that, like, drags the plant underneath the water drain, or underneath, like, the rain, drain, and then, like, all of a sudden the plant gets, like, really big. With that water, that would have just been wasted. I love finding, like, that way to, like, do, like, the optimization of resources so that things don't get wasted. And I think that that was what I was doing in writers' rooms also, is that, like, I would try to figure out how to, like, in the least amount of, like, pieces, create the biggest sum of those parts. And I think that that was always what that thing is. Like, I'm always looking for that 2 plus 2 that equals a million. Like, I'm always trying to feel like, because like, there's certain things where you put 2, like, certain, materials together, and then it's gonna create a bigger, situation than, like, other elements. So you're always just trying to look for that element that is the most extraordinary combination. Like, peanut butter and jelly, superior combination. Like, peanut butter and water, less so. Like, so it's just like you're trying to find peanut butter and jelly with everything. And and I think that kind of came into when I started Orphanage Collective. It was this thing that I felt was just this really important thing that felt like it would fix Hollywood. Um, and that's like, probably a bigger story at some point that we could talk about a little bit more. But I think, like, even the thing that you think is ideal and can fix things, like, what I realize is that you need to take into account if other people want that, or if how people will operate on their worst days when they're their most selfish, they're their most tired. Can your thing still exist? And I think that I just built a world where I was, like, operating with everybody's ideal selves, and I didn't basically create space for people's, you know, uh, the part where people steal or cheat or are sad. And when you don't account for that error, things can't survive. And I think that what I love as a creator and an entrepreneur is that the creativity is to create value. Like, that's what we're trying to do in life, is we're trying to create value for people. And I think that if you are removed from that output, you won't ever know what the value is. And I think that a lot of people would probably think like Vincent van Gogh is like one of the greatest artists of all time. And and it's like tough because it's like he was poor, broke, and he died in a mental institution with not with his ear cut off. Like, he died insane, and he had like alcohol problems and other sort of mental health issues, and then he just happened to become like the greatest artist of all time of just the stuff that they saved, because he destroyed most of it. And and I think I was just like, I think if I think if Vincent van Gogh was able to like operate more and find people that cared more and got less in his way, I think that he could have been, extraordinary. There's a Doctor Who episode all about that, where they show him like, oh, if he just knew that people really loved him, then he would survive and live. And what they said is he still kills himself. And it's like, and it's interesting to think that Vincent Van Gogh was popular and remembered today, not based off of like him making that easy for himself. And I don't think that there's any glory in that. I think that we should, if we make a book and nobody buys it, I think that's an important thing to listen to, because then you need to figure out like, okay, like, how do we figure out marketing? Maybe I need to put more time towards marketing, or I need to figure out how to get this out there. Like, every instance, everything that you do has a value. It creates an output. And there's other things for like hobbies, like your pickleball. You don't need to become like a regional pickleball champion, or become like Marty Supreme. You can do stuff that doesn't make money. But for anybody that wants to make money doing something, you should understand what makes money. And I think that's the biggest thing that I felt in Hollywood that was the problem, is I think a lot of people wanted to like, all of the big people that I met, like really, really big names, like titles on movies, like people that sell movies, would never take back end or take a lower sal. Like, they would say never take percentage later, always take money up front. Never put your own money into a project. That's like what like the common phrase is. or the common sentiment. And I think that that's like problematic because it removes them from feeling incentivized. I think Timothy Chalamet did take a lower rate, and I think he got back end on Mighty Supreme. That's why he marketed so crazy. Is that if you can align the incentives of the people that you're working with and say that they have skin in the game and they want this to do really well and they really care about it, that's what you need. And I think a lot of people operate because in some way they believe that they're not valuable or that people don't care about their stuff. And they want to like exist in this weird reality where it's almost like they're getting away with something, where it's like,
Mm.
oh, like I don't have to market it. I don't care what it is. I like, disdain anybody that likes anything, kind of like how the main character in Pluribus, like she resents her fans. She doesn't like, what she's making, and she like has disdain for the people that really care about her. And I think that you can't do that if you like are connected to the financial outcome of it. Because then you're kind of like you would have to alter yourself. You'd have to change. And so I think the less that we put like layers in between us and somebody that will value what we make, I think the better it is, because then we can get closer and closer to making that thing more and more valuable. And we can figure out the thing that we really love to do. Because I don't think this should be about selling out. I think this should be about, oh, like people like this. I don't like this. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to figure out this, or I'm going to do this. It's about trying things and iterating until you get to the point where people like what you do. And you can buy Chipotle based off of what they do. Like if you like, the whole game is to kind of create more value than you're consuming, right? Like that, like at 10% maybe, if you're just something, create a little bit more than you're consuming. Like that's giving back. And that's the 2 + 2 that equals a million. Is I think that that's super important. And so I think like there was a lot of people that did, sort of interviews today that I was like, that I was listening to while I was like, you know, uh, just operating today. And I think a lot of people said that don't think about the dashboard, don't think about the analytics, don't think about it, like kind of just like groove your way through it. But I think that the harder answer, and because I want you always to have the answer, or the thing that I feel like is I don't know, I want everybody to succeed. And I think that if you remove yourself from the metrics that tell you how to succeed, I think you're setting yourself up for failure or to be a lottery winner. And I think, most of us don't know lottery winners. And I don't think you would want to be one either, because then it's like it's momentary. There was like this there's like this emotional survey that shows that if somebody was experiencing a 10% raise or a 10% rise in their income every year, that's pretty much the happiest that they will ever be. Like nothing lower, nothing higher. That is the most happy that somebody will be, is that there's this like constant growth. But what people found is that like when somebody won the lottery, they're really happy for that year, but the next year when they clearly are not going to, or very likely are not going to earn more than they did the year before, they're depressed. Even though they're a millionaire, they're depressed. And so, because then after that, it's just about a diminishing of what you've had. And so I think we should be really like more embracing of our data, because I think it actually tells, it's a feedback system. It's almost like when people give you notes on your book and to say, I like this, I don't like this. They're telling you with their eyes and with their attention what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. And if you remove yourself from that, then you're putting your life up to chance. And you shouldn't ever put your life up to chance. The more that you listen to the signs and what's going on around you, the closer you're going to get to the thing that you love and the thing that people love from you. And I think that that's like where that is. So when people tell you don't listen to the data, just follow your heart, like I think that you should follow the thing you want to do, but don't ignore signs, because then that's when you end up in like crazy land. Um, like there was a thing that Jari said on his interview with Amy, where he was saying like, before you're even doing posts, just like write a bunch of notes about different things that are the topics that you want, and just publish there for like, I don't know, I would say like publish there for a few weeks, and then just see which notes perform the best. Cause then you would kind of be like, oh, like this is me talking about finances, or this is me talking about, you know, famous quotes from like famous artists, and like, what do they mean? Or like the history of the pen or whatever. Like, whatever your interest is, just like scattershot it, see what people respond to, and then just double down into that, and then just keep going. And then you'll eventually at some point figure out where you're meant to be. And you can't really do that without data. I think some people say that when they're afraid of what their stats are telling them. And they're saying like, oh, I should ignore this. But I think it's, I don't know. I just think like I wouldn't want anybody to ignore what their audience is telling them, especially if they're trying to make a living out of this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then I think Katrina has a good kind of reframe in the chat where she's like, "So perhaps there's something to be said for looking at the data for constructive feedback, but not your personal value." And I also want to add on to that, Katrina. I think that that's like a good insight. I think that like also everybody on Substack, everybody building something is going to be having a different goal in mind.
Hmm.
And I think that some of our guests today and all of our guests today have like had like really lovely kind of approaches to their work and the things that they want to do. And I think that something that was kind of neat today on one end is like hearing people talk from this is what I want for my work life balance. This is what I want for the day or my experience. And so and I think that like one thing that like Kyle and I often will talk about is like we are data driven because we we came up in Hollywood as TV writers where the data was hidden from us. And we
Yes.
could never see our ideal readers. We were always writing in a void. Executives would read our work and ask for free drafts and free scripts. And we were like, okay, are we ever going to get to an audience? And so we love data in part for that. And then also I wrote Write for Money and Power, in part like because of like the goal like this book is not called like write for vibes and joy because I think a lot of us know how to write for vibes and joy. We know how to write to follow our heart, and I think that the tricky thing is like the what Kyle is saying, which is like this feeling of like sometimes like if your goal is to make a certain amount on Substack, if your goal is to hit six figures this year, if your goal is to grow really fast, then the advice that you take and that you choose to take from today might be different than the advice if you're really trying to create like a more thoughtful emotional space for you to build a community that you is more kind of around like something different. And so everybody has it's kind of like that Naval quote. I think it's a Naval quote that's like all advice cancels to zero. And at the end of the day, you have to pick the things that apply to you. Um, I love how Mary in the comments says, I think I'm becoming addicted to your TED Talks, Kyle. And
I'm
I would
sensing a
agree.
regular here, Mary. Thank you. I appreciate it.
No, I love them. But Kyle, yeah, I think that like it's trying to figure out because it's like I know that you and I talk a lot about data because I think data has set us free. And looking at the data, looking at the dashboards, even and it hurts sometimes. Like even when we've had years where like things have not done well, like even like I have a public YouTube series of growing on Substack where I like did not grow for like a year and a half. And I'm on YouTube every month being like, I'm in the trough of sorrow. I'm not growing. Like the data is telling me that this is not something audiences want. And until it actually hit a, like a crazy number and is now, you know, where it is today, what like to wrap up this data conversation, Kyle, what when should writers and creatives be data driven? And when should they maybe be more kind of like creative or kind of like when should they set aside the data? If at all? Or do you think that I mean, like, it's trying to kind of I'm trying to kind of figure out, like, how to kind of frame this conversation to give people actionable tips about when, where, how to use data, either on Substack or book sales, when we have it as independent creatives trying to make a living.
I think it's in the brainstorming stage. Like I think like what we should try. Because like judging by whatever you are like wanting to do, like I want to talk about old books. Or there was a person today that she has an entire Substack that's just about the Gilmore Girls books. Like any literary reference, or I think books that are just seen on the shelves in the show. Like there's 500 books apparently and references in Gilmore Girls, and they're going through every single book to examine what that means potentially in the world of Gilmore Girls. And I think that that's so fascinating. Like, and you don't like arrive there like accidentally. Like you kind of like, you know, you eventually need to be talking about Gilmore Girls. And some people are like, oh, I really like Gilmore Girls. And it's like, can you imagine like just on Rory's bookshelf? Like it's these books. Like who wants to do like, you know, wants to do like just reading Rory's bookshelf for 6 months? And then they're probably like, I'm down. And then she got like 1,000. This is my imagination, but then, like, you know, and then she was like, what if we did the whole series? And now she's over 60,000 people that engage with it. And I think you can have something incredibly, incredibly niche that is finite technically, because it's not like there's going to be more books from Gilmore Girls. Um, but I think like it's just like that. Like I think I think sometimes as artists, I think there's a little bit of fear sometimes and insecurity. That's why we retreat in the worlds that we create, is because they feel safe and we can kind of manage what happens, or we can give ourselves the partner we've wanted. We can give ourselves the story that we've wanted. We can we can live out these fantasies that aren't happening in our real life. And I think that that's I don't know. I think that the data is like our antidote to that, because I think we're trying to connect with real things, and I think we're trying to connect with like real people. I think that that's the point. And I think when you look at Pluribus, like ultimately the character's not satisfied with anything they say because she doesn't believe them. Because it's like, oh, we love you. Because then that means that they're talking as like this like collective that at least a few of them did. And if just a few of you like, if just a few people support you, like sometimes like for to have like grand success like she was looking for, it's not enough. And she focuses on the negative. She focuses on the fact that her partner didn't like her stuff really. She thought it was like cotton candy and it was like nice and inoffensive. And people like cotton candy, but it was ultimately cotton candy. And and I think that we're always kind of like trying to find this supplement for our own self-esteem. And I think that that's like a dangerous place to get into, because I think that, you know, happiness is an inside job. It doesn't come from outside. Like, you know, the world is what we project onto it. And I think that it's important for us as creatives to be as connected to the real world as possible. Because I think that makes things deeper, it makes things more meaningful, it makes things more real, as opposed to somebody that just like is locked in a room and is only writing a book and doesn't talk to anybody ever. Like, you know, there's some great novelists that do that, but I think that things I really care about are things that are very deeply human, in how humans connect to each other and how they build and grow together and how they have conflict with each other. And I think that that's like a thing that's also, I think, a problem with a lot of our major media, is I think that there's no conflict. I think there's an absence of conflict. There's no resolution. There's nothing about like the way that you're operating is hurting people. And are you going to like determine that it's more important to change, or that you're going to keep hurting people? And I think that those evolutions have always felt very like grand and important to me, because it's taught me about my own philosophical and emotional sort of like, you know, way that I operate through the world. And I don't know, I want our artists to feel really human. I don't want us to feel like we're just operating in this like black mirror society where we're just looking at a darker reflection of of ourselves. And I think that that's like the things that there's like either this like there's media that isn't making any stakes where all of the Stranger Things kids can make it to the end of the show. Because like I think if there are no casualties, there are no survivors. And I think that we need to like value life. And if we believe that life is just like infinite and forever, then we'll never treat it as important. And I think that that's like, I don't know, that's why like I think in general with like writing or data or where you should have creativity, to bring it all back, um, I think that I think you should find a place that feels like authentic to you. And I think you should like put it in front of people, and be courageous in what the response is, because it's gonna be real, ideally, especially if you're putting it out to strangers that aren't like incentivized to like taking care of your feelings because they're afraid of hurting your feelings. But if it's just some random mom in Australia or some like teenager in India, like if those people are being able to read your stuff or experience your stuff and give you their input, like that's as real as it'll ever be, because they came in based off of what you were creating. And like that is probably one of the more honest, beautiful things ever. And I think the courage is being able to put ourselves out there, especially as people that create so much interior beauty. Like it's really hard to make it external, like reality. And I think it's
I
important.
love that. I think that's really beautiful. Very, very well said, Kyle. And one of the things that I think that like has helped us in our creative work, and the things that we thought about that I cover in Write for Money and Power, is like the idea of create CEO mode versus artist mode.
Hmm.
And when you're in artist mode, you're just working on your art, you're protecting yourself in the bubble. You're maybe in this point not necessarily looking at dashboards, if you're like depending on where you are, what you're making. If you're making a book, maybe you tune out the outside world and you work on just that project. And then when you're in CEO mode, you set aside your artistic soul and you look at the data, you look at the numbers, you look at your art reviews, you look at what you could have done better, you look at your alpha, your beta readers notes. Like I had 90 amazing beta readers read Write for Money and Power. And some of the feedback was amazing. People thought the book was fantastic. And then we had some critics in the bunch too, but they gave me some of my best notes. And I think that, like, for me, when you're a writer and you're slaving over a book at any stage, whether it's like in a beta reader phase or you're putting a book out in the world, it can feel terrifying and also exhausting to get feedback, especially feedback that is less than positive. But that feedback makes you better, and that feedback helps so much. And I'm so grateful for all of the beta readers in the book. You guys have genuinely made this book better, and I couldn't have done it without your feedback, and Kyle without your edits. And so I think that, like, what Kyle's talking about is, like, if we want to reach the strangers on the internet and be courageous. Sometimes that is fear that we have to move past to get there. The next question I have for you, Kyle, and by the way, if anybody has questions for Kyle, you can drop them in the chat. We're getting to the end of my questions list, so I'm going to keep on going, but if people have questions for Kyle, you can drop it below. Kyle, looking back, what's one belief you had early in your career that turned out to be completely wrong?
Whoa. Um,
Great question, right?
why don't you go first, Amy? I'd love to know what you think of that question.
I think for me is it's actually like the core of. Now I'm showing this book a lot in this last hour of the day. The core
Well,
of
yeah,
Right
I
for
mean,
Money and Power.
hour
Okay,
13,
hour
bonus
13.
hour, right for money.
Yeah. So the reason that I wrote this book is because I am a people pleaser. And when I came up in Hollywood, I started my career working as the assistant minimum wage jobs. And I believed the thing that everybody told me, which was the gatekeepers are always right. And one day, if you are good enough, the cream rises to the top. The gatekeepers are right. They will find you. And I went to USC Film School. I immediately upon graduated worked at a talent agency. I then immediately went and worked for showrunners and writers rooms, and finally got to begin writing TV and put my name on an episode. And at every stage, people are like, just listen to the gatekeepers. The gatekeepers led me to not a great place. And when I looked around, I'm like, I don't think that this is where I want to be. And the decline of Hollywood was part of that, but it was also mostly the gatekeepers. A lot of us in Hollywood were doing a lot of free work. That's just part of the system. I watched my colleagues, I watched my bosses get put through the ringer of executives being told that if they just need to work a little harder, they need to do a little more free work, more like put together a free pitch. And it was just so much stringing along. And, like, I'm an optimistic person. Like, I'm happy to do a lot of free work and pay my dues. And I did that for a really long time. But the thing that I saw on the flip side, the contrast, was that as I was coming up in Hollywood, I was also being a freelance writer. And my clients were flying me out to interview them and tell their stories. I was getting flown out to villas and beautiful places and meeting influential people and working for Olympians and NBA players. And I was like, whoa, clearly the work that I'm doing is useful here. But then the moment I walk into a writer's room, my work is devalued by a ton. And so for me, listening to the gatekeepers was the worst thing that I have ever done in my career. And the moment I stopped listening to them was when I unlocked my creative power, when I was able to build more power and creativity and be able to make my own stuff, being able to earn more than I could have ever thought was possible from writing. And I think that that was truly the gift of walking away from begging the gatekeepers for permission rather than giving it to myself. So, but yeah, that's mine. Kyle, what about yours?
Yeah, I think that's really amazing. And I think that that's like a tribute to you and how you operate because you're such a giving person. And I don't know if people here are on pseudoscience or are part of your 6 week Substack or anything, but like she thinks all of the time about trying to just like help people. I remember the first time I met Amy, she was talking about how she just joined this new thing called Upwork. And she was like, it's like amazing. You can get like freelance work here. And she would spend hours with people, her roommate, her friends, people she worked with, setting up their profile for them, which is like crazy. Eventually, people paid her to do that. She did that for free. And then they never applied to a position. And Amy went out of her way to try to like support people and to empower people. But because it wasn't like, you know, this thing that they imagined was this glamorous like lifestyle, and they might have had a trust fund that was keeping them afloat, so they didn't really need to work. that they just like whatever they said, they wanted the job title and not the job. And I think that that was something that I think is like so extraordinary and why like, I love supporting Amy and everything she's doing because I know it comes from such a genuine, generous place. Sometimes I can be a really harsh person, but because I get frustrated with people. But Amy always comes from a place of like kindness and trying to just like help people and meet them where they're at. Whereas like I'm a person that's just like, I just want to shake them apart. Like, oh my God, like these people. Um, but she's like, Kyle, maybe go to sleep and then we'll like rewrite this article tomorrow. Like it's gonna be all good. Cause I think like where you're coming from, like I think the message is important, but I think potentially the delivery might become a little harsh. So like let's and I'm like, and I love that because she's always thinking like, how do we help people? And that there are people that are in the community that are afraid. And it's about like not terrifying them. And it's about trying to make them feel it's possible. And I think that I like kind of operate from this thing with just like wanting to tell the harsh truths. But I think that there is a lot of upside and there's a lot of good on the other side of a lot of this stuff, and it is worth building. And I think everybody's gonna have their own journey getting there. And I think that I just never want to lead somebody astray. I want people to have like the reality, but like, a spoonful of sugar, helps something go down. And I think that Amy is always thinking about how to help people, how to empower people, how to like go out of her way. Like even when I came up with orphanage, I told Amy and she's like, that's amazing. Like, let's meet up. And then we met up in a park at like sunset. And then she was helping me write up the business plan for orphanage. And then we were there until the like street lights came on. And it's just like, I think she just goes out of her way to try to help people's dreams come true. And I think that that's like, I don't know, it just always comes from like a really genuine place. And I think that that's something that's like helped me and inspired me is just seeing like how Amy operates. And she just always goes above and beyond. She sets like the biggest goals for herself. She's like, I'm gonna be on camera for 12 hours, 13 hours. She immediately became 13 hours because everything takes 3 times as long and 3 times as much. And Amy already at the beginning is like, let's just do 3 times as much. And then it becomes like, whatever, 9 times as much. Um, but it's so cool because I think that so few people just like go for it. And I think that that's like what's so cool about what Amy does is I think she's just always trying to figure out how to give back. I think it's like just a teacher in her. And I think like you can see a lot of people that are just trying to like tell you lies and take money. And I think it's just like it just feels so like bad when I see it. And that's why I think that it's like important to have like, somebody like Amy, like being able to help people see where she's come from and like how to get to where they can go. Cause like you can make writing your job. You can do all this stuff. And I think, I don't know, it's really, really cool. But I think the question Amy asked, if I'm remembering again, was like, what's one thing that I think differently about now than I did 10 years ago is I think I think I dealt with a lot of insecurity. And I think I wanted to work for the biggest people in Hollywood because in some way I felt very, very small. And that was like, I had a bit of a challenging upbringing. I had a hard father. And I think that my whole life was just trying to be good enough. And even if I was on the biggest show that everybody in Hollywood cared about, like I remember certain people in my family would be like, "Oh, but that show's not as good as like Yellowstone. You should be on like Yellowstone. That's a way better show." And it was like, "Oh my God, like I've achieved like this massive success that everybody around me is kind of like looking at me and like their eyes light up." Like I used to hear people tell my story of how I got into Hollywood. Like at a bar. Like I went back 2 years ago and I was with a friend and I was waiting for him. And there was these new there's these new assistants that were telling this story of like how
It's a
I got my
crazy
job.
story. It's a crazy
Uh
story.
and for another time. But it's like it's interesting just to see kind of like, yeah, I wish I didn't put my value so much in other people. And I think that I wish I believed more in myself. And and I think I would have gotten a lot farther if I did that. Like my first situation when I got into LA because I didn't know anybody was I got like uh kind of wrapped up with this really really rich person this like child, not a child, but he was like a young 20 something, and he was wanting to make a media company and his family owned a very like big winery in the Malibu area. And I ended up living on this like estate for like weeks, just basically drinking free wine and like crashing all the weddings on the property. And it was just like this insane, like kind of thing. And and he had like a whole studio there of all of this like cameras and different equipment and like everything. And he was like, just make whatever. And I felt like I just couldn't do it. And I had literally like a blank check, all of the cameras in the universe, and I could have filmed something in this insane location. Um, and and I just couldn't do it. And I ended up like going and becoming a PA on a TV show. And and I think about like if I had that opportunity now, like would I have still done it? Or would I have done it differently? And it's hard to rewrite because you always know more later down the road. And I think there were some sketchy things about that situation that made me feel a little uncomfortable. Is like, sometimes people with a lot of money and a lot of influence like make me uncomfortable because I don't want to be like used by anybody. So I think that I always am trying to be in control and not being the one that's being controlled. Um, which was like always a challenging thing with Hollywood because that's kind of your currency is how much you're allowing people to control you. And so I think looking back, I think my feeling I wish I could tell myself is like just put your work out there. And like the thing is I have scripts just on my computer that are like dreams that I had as a child that I wanted to make real. And I was like, man, I wish I could make these things real. And I just put the most like Mount Everest thing in front of me to make them not real. But I think the thing with like how much easier it is like with Substack or any of these things or YouTube just to put yourself out there. Like I think it's like incredible. Like I think the world is going to see those stories. Like they're going to see like these crazy things that I came up with at some point. And I think that that's so incredible. And I think that I wish I wish that I just focused more on putting myself in front of real people rather than playing this like giant game. Like I went on like 1,000 like drink meetups, 1,000 plus, because I had a huge database of like all the meetings I did. And I calculated all that money and I spent so much time. I spent my whole 20s basically doing it. And I think it's tough because when you're operating in a system that is inherently built and was created in a large part for very affluent people's children to operate in, like that's what McKinsey is for finance, but like Hollywood was something for rich people's children to do. And when you're coming in as an outsider that isn't that, and you don't have that level of support, then you're operating and you're getting in all these games of these like made up kind of positions that don't really earn any value because Hollywood doesn't exist in a world that creates value. It can like eat value. And and I think that I went on so many meetings just believing I just needed to meet every single person on the planet. And by the time when I realized that I knew every single person and my odds were not going to get better. And it didn't matter. I could like have a script get on like really big lists. I can have the biggest agents in my corner. I could have the biggest managers in my corner. I can literally know actors that are like in giant movies. Like I have their phone, the numbers in my phone, and it doesn't like make a difference. Then I was like, oh, I played the wrong game. And I think that that's like why the Mark Duplass thing I think is so, so important. And it's kind of like what Amy's talking about is just like, don't put your dreams behind gatekeepers or in the hands of gatekeepers because the cavalry is not coming. Nobody's going to save you. Paying one random house isn't going to save you, and HBO is not going to save you. HBO can't even save themselves. So I think it's like it's tough when it's like we have these ideas of these things that were so important to us growing up, but like sometimes like with the things that we loved growing up, it's sort of like chasing the light of dying stars. Is that by the time you would actually follow where that light's coming from, it's completely gone already. And I think that I don't know. I just like I learned so much and I got to encounter so much and I got to be in the rooms with literally like the people that made me want to be a creative and I learned so much from them. And it's like literally the most invaluable like 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 teachings I've ever experienced in some ways. But in a lot of ways also like that I have not achieved that on my own or what we're building with Amy. And I think that I could have gotten there. And I think I could have figured this out because I think that Amy's just like, let's stop thinking about it. Let's just do it. And I think that that's like, Amy's like, I just made the LLC last night. Was like, I would just wake up the next day and she's like, I just did the whole thing. I made it. Let's go. Um, and so she's already like just like, running off the cliff, like, diving into the unknown. And then I'm just like, well, I'm not gonna be here by myself. And so like I think like I think I've I think I definitely kind of I don't know, I think more people should have that. But I also get I don't know, just wanting to have Steven Spielberg direct your movie. Like I get it. Like it makes a ton of sense. Like it feels like this like promised land. But I've known people that have had Steven Spielberg make their movie and I don't think they're very happy. And so it's like, oh man, they can still be sad and have Steven Spielberg make their movie. So then what does that mean? And when I started to realize that like none of the people around me seem to be empowered, happy, you know, it just like made me be like, oh, I don't want to go down this road. And I think that, yeah. And I think, I don't know, it's so strange. It's like, it's crazy to think that like, it's been like 10 years since I was, on a show that I think about a lot. Um, and it's just funny how time goes. And I think it's the most valuable thing that we have. And I think we should just like do what we care about and listen to the data and try to create value for people because I think that that is like the most like genuine good thing that we could ever do.
Well said. And to catch up on the chat, Elizabeth said, I so get that, Kyle. And before I get to Mary Beth's comment, we have the last giveaway of the
All
book
right.
launch to do. It is I think the biggest giveaway we've done all day. But before I get to that, Mary Beth in the comments says, who are your favorite mentors and how do you keep your creative momentum? Like what gets you out of bed in the morning? Also, how do you take your coffee? And I want to share a fun fact about Kyle is that all of this energy, decaf. Kyle
No calf.
has like, Kyle has not, he does this to caffeine. He's like, no caffeine. And I think that that is like the most extraordinary thing ever. And Judy in the comments says, Amy, let's go. Love your enthusiasm, can do, attitude, and action taking. This is caffeine. This is caffeine.
Creatine.
Kyle, this is,
It's the
well,
creatine.
creatine has definitely changed my life. That is like its own post at some
She's like
point.
remembering
Creatine.
childhood memories. Like I'm like, I've never heard this. Like it's like insane. Like she can like talk to me at 3 p.m. It's like
I
it's
can.
crazy.
That's
Like
mhm.
Amy used to turn into a pumpkin
I
like
did. And
after that.
if you are a vegetarian who has 3 p.m. crashes, 5 grams creatine a day will make you feel wired. But
You'll
also
feel like
Kyle
Bradley Cooper in Limitless. You'll just be like,
and Kyle also flew me in a Vietnamese iced coffee today at like 1
yeah.
p.m., which helped a lot. And Judy, I like what you said in the comments there, add value, solve problems, and help people. That's a great distillation of the
I
things
should
we
have just
talked
said that.
about.
Judy, thank you. I'm sorry. Can we like rewind? Just cut out what I said before.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think that
Judy, you
people
should
should
just
add value, solve problems, and help people.
Judy, you should be Kyle's like
Translator.
editor, yeah, developmental editor. I think that's a great kind of summary. Okay, so let's get this giveaway started, and then I'll wrap up with my last question for you, Kyle. So everybody, as you guys know, we both are co-founders of the Substack Make Writing Your Job, which is a Substack bestseller. Pew, pew. I think we're number 25 on business, and we help writers find work. We have a writing job board. And one of the highest tiers of Make Writing Your Job is our founding tier. So you get access to our writing job board, but all the paid benefits, writing job board, grants, residencies, and contests. Pitch list, things like that, all of our
So much.
archives, so much. But the founding tier, you get access to 24-hour early access to featured jobs, which are jobs that our clients post directly on the job board. These are often authors who are posting developmental editor jobs, line editor jobs, proofreader jobs. Alexandra, who was on an earlier Substack, found two of her editors from our community, Make Writing Your Job, and hired them from there and had some very nice things to say on our last Substack Live. Okay, so the founding tier is normally $550 a year because there's all these benefits. And then also we have a quarterly mastermind group where we writers meet once a quarter. It's for a small group. That's why the price point is a little higher. And we are giving away one founding membership to Make Writing Your Job. And in the comments below, the way to enter the giveaway for this is that in one sentence, what's one way you're taking back creative power in your own work without gatekeepers or just in general in 2026? So feel free to leave a comment below. And then Judy said in the comments, Amy would love to hear more about your health story. Your energy level is inspiring, especially after what you went through with health challenges. And so, yes, that's a whole separate thing. I will eventually make, I think, a form YouTube video, but currently, creatine, coffee, great combo.
Bariloche
uh,
water.
Oh yeah, and then I was in Bariloche when I put my autoimmune condition in remission. So go to the glaciers of Bariloche, Argentina, and it's great. It's actually not that
Easy.
expensive to travel there, so depending on the currency, but a beautiful place, great hiking. Okay, so while you guys are in leaving comments down below for the giveaway, and again, that question is in one sentence, what's one way you're taking back creative power in your own work? And soon Kyle will pick a response from the comments to give away one 12-month founding member paid subscription to make writing your job. So again, what's one way you're taking back creative power? Kyle, last question for you. For the final question, what's one practical way creatives can reclaim a sense of agency or leverage right now, even in an unstable system?
Hit publish, baby. Hit publish. See, Judy, I can be concise. Hit publish. Hit that pub day.
Yeah. So while you guys are leaving comments down below for the giveaway for our Make Writing Your Job founding member subscription down below, again, in one sentence, what's one way you're taking back creative power in your own work? I'll talk a little bit about Write for Money and Power. You have been here with us live for 13 hours straight for Write for Money and Power, the anti-starving artist guide to becoming a seven-figure writer. If you didn't know, today is pub day and it's out today. And if you like this book, if you like the cover, if you like the first few pages, if you like any of it, it honestly would change my life if you could leave an Amazon review. It seems like a small ask, but it's actually not. And if you buy the book for 99 cents on ebook and also leave an Amazon review, Amazon is nicer to me. And so it really does help authors. It really does help new people find this book who are not in our communities. And it truly does change the life of a writer. If you know, read any other authors and you like their stuff, especially self-published authors, leaving an Amazon review is great. This book, I talk about how to build a profitable career as a seven-figure freelance writer, a Substacker, and a self-published author. All of those strategies. We have a 12-month plan in here, how to go from building from total scratch your writing career in a sustainable way without gatekeepers. And that book is out today. It's on Amazon. I'm sure you've seen links floating around, but again, it's Write for Money and Power. And that is the book, and that's the book launch that you've been on all day.
Amy, having done not 12, but 13 hours, because you give always that little bit extra to everybody else. Like, what do you think, like, in retrospect, sort of thinking on this day, like, what was your biggest takeaway? Like, what do you think is something if somebody was to do their own book launch in the future, like, how could they pace themselves? Like, what do you think are some just three takeaways of like what you think like people should think about going into planning something like this? Or if you were to do it again, what would you do differently?
Yeah, I think that just in general, if like you are doing a book launch of your book, there was a point in time where I'm like, I'm not gonna do anything for my book launch. I'm just gonna like hang out. And even like 2 or 2.5 weeks ago, I was like, maybe I'll just hang out for my book launch. But then I like woke up after like in the middle of the night, and I'm just like, I should do a 12-hour Substack live book launch. And I wanted to do that because I'm like, I think this would be cool to celebrate this with our community, and I think that this would be really cool and neat and fun to do. And I'm a very ambitious person, and I have a very supportive co-founder and partner in Kyle. And so I'm also able to do this because Kyle is so amazing and so supportive and so fantastic and is such a great co-founder and partner. And so I'm very lucky that I have him in my life and in our world. But I think that for anybody else who's planning any sort of book launch on Substack Live or out in the world, just come up with the biggest, boldest, baddest version of everything to try and put your book out there in the fashion that feels unique to you. That doesn't have to be a 12-hour Substack book launch. This could be anything for you. And I think that that's something that is like trying to figure out. That's what our guests have been saying all day today that I think is so true is how do you listen to your intuition? What feels good to you? Still set yourself outside of your comfort zone, but still come from an authentic place is what a lot of our guests have said today. And I think that that really does hold true is like, how do you push yourself outside of your comfort zone, but do it from an authentic place? And I think that that is what I recommend for book launches. And then also as a side note, I worked with two great professionals who helped immensely on this book launch. Haley Raymond was my publicist. She booked me on so many podcasts, many of which are coming out this week. And Renee Puvada, who's been on a lot of lives today, has also helped me book guests for Substack Live. She has helped me design my whole Amazon ad strategy, which I'm about to do. I mentioned them in posts about my book launch, and I'll mention them again. Highly recommend them both. If you decide to work with either of them, tell them that I recommended you. Sometimes they give deals or discounts. And so the two of them, those women were with me for the last 6 months and planning all this book launch, and so they're amazing. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Good job, Amy.
Okay, Kyle. So now it's your turn to go and scroll through the comments and go ahead and pick the winner for the giveaway. And I will scroll through too.
I think you should pick Amy because I think you've done so much today, and you also. I know that there's some people that are already founding members in there, so I don't want to accidentally give another founding member access. So I'd be curious. I think it's probably better for you to pick.
No, you should pick because I've already picked somebody for a founding member the first live of the day.
You did? Okay, okay,
And I'm
okay.
looking through, and I don't think that we have any double founding members who are already founding,
Okay.
make writing
I
your
didn't
job
want it to go
founding
to
members.
waste.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And thank you, Katrina. She says that this has been such a great day. Katrina, I know you've been on like almost every Substack live. Thanks for being here. Amy Benavides says, thank you so much for an inspiring day. Amy, look forward to discussing my Substack tomorrow. Yes, I'm excited to have our one-on-one tomorrow. Okay, it's amazing. Okay, cool. Kyle, you should pick because I had the honor of picking a founding member this morning. So you should
Okay.
pick the winner of our giveaway for Make Writing Your Job founding membership today.
I think the least I can do for the person that so beautifully edited what I said, I think Judy Wilson, I think you should have the founding membership. So I hope it helps with you taking back your creative power, not getting distracted, staying focused, and managing time well.
Great pick, Kyle. Judy, if you can email Kyle, DM Kyle your email address so we can add you as a founding member to Make Writing Your Job, that would be amazing. And thank you guys for being a part of this really special day. And thank you for being here, and thank you for being part of the community. Like Kyle and I do this truly because we love it. It's so cool to be in this space. And both of us were like badly beaten by our time in Hollywood, and that's why we wanted to create a space that felt really cool and vibey and awesome for writers. And so we're really grateful that you guys are all here as a part of this. And thank you again for joining us for the 13-hour Substack Live book launch. Kyle, any last words before? Wait, Kyle, tell us where we can find you on Substack, independent of the work that you do for Make Writing Your Job. Where can people find you on social media? Anything else you may want to share?
Um, I have a publications founder core that I promise I will figure out and post more on. So you can find me there or you can just DM me. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm up to. And tomorrow is going to be really exciting because we've been working on this for like 6 months and it's been like more like 9 months. It's been like a really long journey. So like tomorrow is like the first day of what we're going to be doing next. And it's super exciting. And I can't wait for us to tell you guys more about that because it's going to be wild.
We have more secrets for you that we've been working on. So it's been very
The
exciting.
Chamber of Secrets. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But I'm sure we'll be back and see you guys on some Substack office hours, not this week, but probably next week. Have a great rest of your week, everybody. Have a great evening. Thank you all for joining us and see you later.
Thank you. Stay vibey.
Thank
Later.
you. Bye.
Bye.